Thank you everybody for joining. This is the first of our webinars like this. We're not going for PowerPoint presentations. There's no pipe, sadly, no diagrams. It's just a conversation, and something that we hope to be able to continue with as well as the next few months progress. It's a really good format for us because it means you can either listen to it if you haven't got time to dial in at the time we're recording, or you can look at it in a different way. But it's the idea is that we provide a few of these on different topics. And today's topic is about EDI, and for those that don't know what that is and want to know a bit more about it, equity, diversity and inclusion. And it's something that as a guild we're interested in making sure we provide opportunities for everybody. We want to have a really diverse environment, and the organisations we all work with and for are also keen to move that forward. But we all have experiences, and I'm really lucky to be joined today by two people who I've been introduced to both via the guild, but have their own experiences, and we're going to go through some discussions about where we're at, where we want to be, and our own experiences too. The opinions are our own and based on our own experiences, but we want to just open the door, start the conversation. If you have any questions, there's a chat function, and this is on Teams, so there's a chat room function in the top, so drop your questions in there, or we can do some at the end. And the recording will be available on the YouTube channel as well for anybody that wants to listen back. And if you're not listening live and you want to get in touch, then our contact details will be available at the end of the webinar. So thank you. Right, that bit over. Canthy, I'll start with you. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and your experiences?
Okay, well, my name's Canthy Ford, and I'm a leadership coach, and I work in all sorts of different sectors, and I have done for the last 20 odd years, sort of starting in television and then working into the energy sector. And I work mainly in the energy sector in about 80 different countries since I started working. Yeah, that's me.
That's amazing. And I think that's what, before we even start talking about the book that you have recently written, and we'll touch on that a bit later, 80 countries, that's fascinating and amazing. And you must have come across every different type of bias and type of conversation around this sort of topic. So really intrigued to see your experiences there. Dan, past chair, are you able to give us a little intro about who you are?
Yeah, certainly. So Dan Jefferson. I'm currently residing in Yorkshire on a water treatment work project for Yorkshire Water. Been involved in the sector for what seems like a lifetime now, but 20 years ish, on and off, across the UK. Predominantly the water sector. Pipelines, of course, is my bag, and then my involvement with the Pipeline Industry Guild during that career has been really nice for me, and opened me up to having and developing a network that includes you both and a whole host of other people that will probably listen and hear this conversation today. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome.
Pass it back to you, Rachel, because no, you haven't introduced yourself yet, so let's hear a bit more about you.
I'll do that too. Thanks Dan. And thank you both for joining us. I'm Rachel Bridge. I'm Deputy Chair, so taking over at the end of December. I'm a surveyor by trade for an organisation called Fisher German, effectively looking after land and consents for infrastructure projects. I did my first pipeline project in 2007 as a placement student down in the southwest on a gas pipeline project. So I've spent my whole career in energy and infrastructure and had a really exciting time. I absolutely love it, which is probably why I'm so involved with the guild. But I think there are barriers in our sector. There are, whether they're seen, unseen, intentional or not, there are, I think we've got a few challenges we need to address, and I'm really excited that we're just starting to have that conversation around this particular topic. So that's me, and I'm keen to see where our conversation goes. So I think to start with, what would be really useful is thinking about your careers so far. What impact has equity, diversity and inclusion had on your career? Where has it created opportunities or challenges based on your sort of experiences? Candy, I'll go to you first.
Oh, I thought you'd go to Dan first.
Sorry. Oh, we can.
It's okay. It's been interesting. I mean, it's been interesting. I think probably the biggest, my most honest answer would be that it's something that I've always pretended didn't exist, because to admit that it existed would kind of like put me out there as somebody who's got, you know, an agenda or something. So I've kind of like gone along with it. So when I was working in Iran, I was a token man for 3 months on a project. I had to wear full burqa, but I was still Mr. Forward all the time I was working. There's things like that. You kind of like let it go, because if you make an issue about it, particularly in those kind of environments, it becomes a big deal.
That's really interesting. I mean, and you can't even imagine, you know, anybody having to experience that and the impact that must have had on your confidence at the time.
Yeah, well, I was wearing a full burqa, so I kind of felt like I was hidden in any case. But yeah, it does, because it constantly makes you sort of on edge. You're always watching out just in case you say something wrong or say something out of place. Absolutely. Yeah,
that's really, really challenging, and I'm sorry you had that experience. I you know, would hate to think that anybody would have to go through something like that, but that just isn't where we are now, hopefully, and where we're going to be in the future. But that's just not acceptable. Dan, from your perspective, what springs to mind?
I guess for me, it's the cultures that are sort of being created over time. We've got, and I know Canthey's talking a particular country there where certain cultures will be different to our own in the UK. But for me, it's that unconscious bias that are currently still present. And as much as we say that we don't think they are there, they are obviously there. And if you do take a step back and listen to conversations that go on between members of teams or within organisations, there is still an undertone or a culture that's changing. It's evolving. I won't say that we're all nailing it, but there's a lot of learning to be done, I would say, and I think we're on the start of this journey really. In industry, yeah, we've made some big strides, but there's still plenty to do and still plenty to go at.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think I would completely agree. I think when I started, there was the male female bias was probably my biggest challenge, and maybe age as well. You know, turn up to a meeting and people assume you're there to make the tea, take the notes, that sort of thing, and you know, you're there to do a technical job, and you're experienced at what you do. And I think Candy, like you, I would never have. When I started out in my career, I would never have called anybody out for it, or I'd have just got my head down and I think taken on the mantra of I need to do an even better job. It's more important that I get it right. I need to make sure I do a really good job. And so you'd spend time sort of evaluating what you've done to make sure that, you know, it stands up and isn't, you know, substandard for any reason, which is quite sad. Now I think things have changed, and I think if I experience or witness any bias, I would be, you know, I would call it out, and I would feel quite confident having those conversations, and I think less concerned about the impact it would have on me, more guided by my core principles. But I think that takes time for you sometimes to get to that position, and depends on the room you're in and how you feel. But I think what we need to have is, you know, people make honest mistakes. I think we're humans, and you know, humans make honest mistakes, but I think it's if that becomes culture, that's not acceptable, and if we can do something about it, then that's really important. But I do think it takes a degree of confidence to be able to do that, and that's really hard for many people.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say, Rachel, about it takes confidence, because I was just going to say, you're thinking about 2007. I mentor quite a lot of women in sort of middle management and junior management roles in across all the utilities. And only 2 weeks ago, I actually was advising them that, how, giving them coaching on how to refuse to take the notes because they're assumed to take the notes, that you don't have to do the catering, you don't have to organize the teas and coffees in the room just because, well, I don't want to let them down. I've been asked, but I feel like I'm being put upon because I'm the only female on the team. So that's 2 weeks ago. And it's having that confidence that you've got now, having learned how to do it, that's making the difference.
But for me, it shouldn't just be the individuals. It should be about everybody within that room being able to positively influence the other people. So you don't have to, you use the phrase "call people out." It's not about calling people out. It's about having the conversation, in a positive way that highlights that it's not appropriate to talk or ask people to do tasks because of their gender or their age or whatever. If everybody chips in and helps out and does their bit, then we're all in a better place together. And it shouldn't just be down to the individual to have to call somebody out. If I'm witnessing it, it should be me that will be able to have the voice to say that it's inappropriate. And I'm sure there were people on the call today that will have perhaps witnessed, if they reflect on those moments and meetings, for instance. I think, Kanthi, you're talking about there, where that unconscious bias does kick in, and it's a cultural thing. I think it's something that's come from all the generations that we work with from the past, and even through to today. Last couple of weeks, Kanthi, you mentioned there that there is still that unconscious bias in society that we need to overcome and break and move forward from.
Yeah, it's the way things are. It's it's just assumed, and it's those subtle things like I was talking about a presentation yesterday, and all the characters that were the energy sector were depicted were all kind of like male stick characters, and I said, that's really interesting. Why have you done that? So it's just the way things are. So as a group, that's the way we let things be. And as you say, Dan, just challenging it as an individual. Why are we doing it this way? Then gets the conversation going.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about it from the sort of the mindset perspective. I do some I'm a STEM ambassador, science, technology, engineering and maths. So I go into schools and do presentations on, I'm a surveyor by trade, but generally talk about infrastructure and pipes because that's my obviously passion topic. And the children, it's interesting, children at the really young children, I've 5-year-old daughter myself, they see you in a high, always take my hard hat and my high vis and make sure I'm looking like I've been out on site, even if I'm in the office, but take some stuff like that. I don't think we're born with that bias, but I think our nurture creates the bias, and even for children, things are very orientated towards children, whether they're male or female or whatever it is. But I think if you can break those stereotypes at an early age, they believe that anybody can do anything. I think it's as we progress and get older, and it's how we try and maintain the opportunities in our industry. And I think that might be one of our challenges we have. We've got an industry here that we need people. We're short of people across the board, and it doesn't matter whether you're in on your side down and actually physically out on site, or whether you're surveying or ecologists or lawyers or operators themselves. We all need more people, and to be we need to make sure that the place that you come to work in is as inclusive as possible. I'd be interested to think what talking about the benefits of diversity, what benefits you've seen when you do get a diverse group of people looking at a challenge, what impact that has versus 5 people coming from very similar backgrounds looking at a challenge, and that sort of group think mentality where you just go together because, oh yes, this is what we're going to do. In your experiences, what are the benefits of having that diverse group around the table?
Right first time solution, and that sounds really corny, but you're getting perspective from such an array of different people and different experiences, culture, knowledge, that you're able to supply a solution which ultimately works.
But it's asking those questions, isn't it, Dan? It's people when somebody says, why do you do it that way? And you think, Well, because it's always done that way. That's how we should to do it that way. And then once somebody asked that question, and they said, "Well, couldn't you do it another way? And it might be much quicker and faster." And oh, we wouldn't want to do it. It's always been done that way. So just having that conversation and having somebody who's got that ability to ask, feels comfortable to ask, why is it happening that way, then starts to change the dynamic. That's how new inventions happen. That's when things get exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you look at I'm only 16, 17 years in, and I'm seeing the volume of work across all sectors: water, gas, electricity, hydrogen, carbon capture, oil, all of them, we're booming. There's nobody I know when we sit around a guild boardroom table that's going, oh, there's not much work going on at the minute. Everybody has got a lot on. We've got some massive challenges, whether it's energy security, net zero, the weather and the impact that's having on infrastructure. We were talking about flooding before we came online. There's masses of challenges. And I suppose it's that old, saying of, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. And so this is where we really need to attract really good talent, diverse talent into our industry. And if you take somebody from a completely different background that doesn't come with any preconceived ideas, they will look at it differently, and there's a massive advantage to that. And I think the guild is, can be really useful and good in nurturing those sort of ideas and technologies.
Yeah, and it's keeping people in the industry too, because it's all very well attracting new people into the industry. So say people of different genders, it can be very daunting for, a young female particularly, to be in an environment where there's lots and lots of guys, because whether you like it or not, and I was saying this to Dan the other day, everybody is so much taller than you. I mean, I know I'm exceptionally short, but and suddenly you're on the outside, physically on the outside. So you've got a group of people talking about something, you're looking at a project or talking about something in a room, and you're physically alienated. It can be quite intimidating for somebody to assert themselves. So it's being mindful of just those things, because once you've attracted people, you've got them inspired and they really want to be part of the industry because they get it, and then you've got to keep them in the industry. So you've got to make sure that they get the right sort of inductions. They feel that they're part of something that's bigger than just where they are at the moment. So that way you kind of keep things moving forward, which is where the industry is currently struggling, where all industries are struggling.
It's a fascinating point, that, Canthy, with regards to body language, because it's another cultural thing in my mind with regards to how you present yourself and how you might stand up in a meeting to gain some respect or some authority to take a moment in the meeting forward. But to consider it from the physical size is perhaps something that even I wouldn't have even brought into the sort of questioning, but it's a really fascinating element to reflect on with regards to the people that you're in a meeting with and the sort of body languages that you're giving off, because ultimately that could also, as you said, alienate people from being prepared to speak up or have a voice in that moment. So yeah, really.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk of psychological safety and making people feel trusted and feel safe in the environment they're working in. And, all of those things are part of it, giving people the comfort to be able to speak up, giving people the comfort to be able to make mistakes. All of those things are part of becoming a more inclusive culture.
Yeah, it's interesting, sort of leaning on that lessons learned theory as well. And if we all had the benefit of more time, how would we do things differently, and what would be the best way of doing things? And it's that right first time approach that you were talking about, Dan. If you have the time to properly plan something and you really look at something, or you look at mistakes that are made. And I remember John Butterworth at our event in May, our guild conference, he was talking about the safety challenges and that group think and everybody. And I think the big challenge there was basically the leader following the second in command, just following the leader, because obviously they're the leader, so you do what they say, even though they probably had they had the ability to make the difference. It's having that confidence in, you know, all of us in our work lives, client facing. We do have some quite serious situations at times, and we can't afford to have people not having the confidence to stand up, because that might be the person that either saves somebody's life, you know, and I don't think that's dramatic, either saves somebody's life or creates the solution that we need for a challenge. And I think how we create those environments where there's space to talk and there's, you know, everybody's voice is heard, but also, you know, we've done a bit of work internally at Fisher German on sort of personality types, and we've done some deep diving and worked out what colours we might be, or what type of how you process information and how you might respond. And if you're in a meeting and you've got an hour to bring something up, if you're not in that environment where you feel you can get your voice out there, but actually you've got a really good idea and you can follow up in a different way, I think there is a bit of onus on chairs of meetings or leaders to make sure that they create the environment for everybody to be able to express themselves, so that information comes in, because the only person that's really missing out is, you know, the client or the chair of that meeting, because if they don't hear from that person. So I'm interested in how you think leaders can create that inclusive environment, or whether you've seen really good examples of it working in your sort of real day-to-day lives.
Great leaders encourage the people who are quietest in the room to be part of the conversation. Great leaders sometimes get carried away with hearing their own voices and hearing because everybody's agreeing with them all the time. But having that empathy to be able to identify that there's other people in the room who have got really interesting ideas, or who have not said anything and are maybe really quiet, actually bringing them into the room without putting them into a place of discomfort. That's the mark of a great leader, because they always say the greatest leaders follow their people. The people don't follow them, because they've set the goal, they've set the journey, they know where they're going.
Yeah, that's really true. I completely agree. Dan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I suppose the only addition to it is it sort of leads on that sort of listening to the people within the room, or the people that you're engaging with, and it is about that listening element of the leader. The leader's capability for listening is utmost importance. You know, it's setting the desires or the end goals are fantastic, but listening to the team and achieving that end results is best for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. We talked a little bit earlier about conscious and unconscious bias. I wonder if we could just unwrap that a little bit more. I know your book talks about bias, Canthi, and I am not all the way through, but I'm halfway through and reading some familiar tales that I completely recognise, which is great, but also quite sad. And I think people that listen to this may be the ones that want to be more self-aware, or are very self-aware, and therefore are aware of their conscious bias and unconscious bias, and then what impact that has on those people that don't have that.
I mean, we're all biased. That's the thing that I keep saying. You know, we're hardwired for bias, because we're born in one place. We're all born in different places, different parents, different impacts. The whole time, we've got our own biases. Being conscious of our own biases. Not a day goes by where I don't kind of catch myself out and say, "Why do you think that?" Or "Why are you reacting to that person like that?" So being aware of it really, really makes a difference. When you're trying to interact with other people, and you can clearly see that they may have a bias, it's just, well, I would always call it gentle prompting, to try and encourage them to see things the other way without actually directly challenging them, because directly challenging them leads to the bias becoming even more entrenched usually.
That's a really interesting technique, I think, and something that we could probably, I can see Dan smiling, because I can see him thinking, yeah, that's quite useful actually.
No, and it is. And I think the only thing for me is, how do you positively turn it, rather than trying to. So a positive prompt would be something that I would tend to lean towards, Canthi. It's if you can turn it into a positive, somebody's more likely to engage with it because they see it as a plus with regards to their own personal engagement. It's sometimes difficult, and you know, from a personal perspective, I know I have said things in the past that I've had to reflect on myself, or thought, well, maybe that's not where we should be going. You know, and as you said, Rachel, we make mistakes. We're human beings. Things occur or happen that shouldn't, but on occasions they do, and it's been aware that that's happened, reflecting on those moments and correcting it or apologising if the mistake's gone too far. I mean, personally, I perhaps haven't recognised that moment of having to go and apologise to somebody just yet. But I'm sure there are times where, although a positive prompt would be beneficial, I'm sure I would also be open to a direct challenge. Maybe not in front of everybody, because nobody likes to be challenged in front of everybody. But I would, you know, accept somebody highlighting something that isn't proper, or isn't right, that we need to move forward from. You know, there's a lot that's happened in society as a whole in the past that we need to reflect on and learn from. You know, there's been an awful lot that's come out more recently that shouldn't have happened, should never have happened, but unfortunately it did. It was a culture, it was a way of society at that moment in time, and we do need to move forward from it in a positive way.
And I'd hate to see bias used as a battering ram. You know, over time we've there's all sorts of moral battering rams we've had. You know, and the worst thing possible, you're biased. No, I'm not biased. You know, having that conversation could be quite painful.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's the it's just bringing them forward so that you become more aware of what your own bias is. You know, even if it's just over, you know, we all have biases. You're right. And if anybody says I'm completely unbiased, it's very difficult to be unbiased about absolutely everything, because your experiences will dictate your bias. But if you can at least be aware of them and then try and make sure that what you do is as inclusive as possible, and recognize the contributions that other people have, and actually, you know, I think one thing that Harmon, who did our internal training on the personality types, you know, we're really talking about the benefits of the opposites. You know, people that are the opposite to you probably bring more to the table than the people that are like you, because they will see things in a different way, and that diversity of thought is actually really vital in making big decisions or running massive projects. Whatever it is, actually, if you can get that diversity of thought, the project is more likely to be successful. And so actually the first person you want on your team is somebody who's completely different to you and sees it in a different way, because they will pick up on something you won't, and vice versa. And actually that makes a really good team. So there's massive opportunity. We just need to make sure it's completely harnessed and grabbed for, you know, for everybody, the benefit of everybody.
And the challenge with that, of course, is it puts everybody out of their comfort zone, because you then say, why have you got a team that's so much like you? Have you thought about having a team that's slightly different?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, and sometimes it's difficult. You know, you look at, I know I did a university lecture a couple of weeks ago, and you know, if there's only so many universities doing courses and the people they're recruiting are from a, you know, certain background, it's very difficult to then recruit, you know, diverse people. But you know, I think we've done a lot on the apprenticeship levy and the different routes into professions, whatever it is, whether it's engineering, surveying, ecology, legal, whatever. There are a lot more route options available now, which means you can create that diverse team, whereas 20-30 years ago, you know, this cohort of people did this course and then that produced this cohort of, you know, output. And so therefore, you know, you've got you know, you're looking at, well, we need this group of people and this is the group we're, you know, able to choose from. Whereas I think there's so many more options available now and different routes to entry into the different professions and lots of opportunity. So I think it's moving in the right direction. I'd love it to move faster.
I think we'd all love it to move faster, Rachel.
Well, it's talking about it is a great start. Doing something about it's the next step, really. And so far, I mean, the industry has tended to say, oh, we're doing all the right things, but actually not really fast enough doing all the right things.
Yeah. But I think you're right though, Candy, is that combination you were talking about earlier of the person in the room, but the wider the wider team as well, and recognizing what's going on here before you even get to that point. And Dan, your point about, it's about the wider team as well is really vital, and recognizing the opportunities that brings for everybody. It's just going to make a much more enjoyable working environment. We're going to get better project outcomes. I just don't see a downside to this. It seems like a non-conversation really, but here we are having this conversation. I wanted to ask you both, if you were if somebody was listening to this and they're not a member of the guild, but they're listening to this going, oh, I'm not really sure where I fit in, I'm not an engineer, or I don't quite know where I'd fit, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to join us but looks at either the organisations we work with or the profiles and thinking, I don't quite fit here? What would you say to somebody who thinks they might but not sure? How would you advise them?
So I guess taking the lead a little bit on this one, Ganthy, for me, talking and networking with people, it's probably the most human thing that we do. We like to have a conversation, we like to speak to people, and I would hope that anybody would be open to speaking to myself. And there are other people, of course, across the guild that anybody could speak with, but yeah, come to a networking event, come to an open forum where it may be a bit more relaxed. We can have a drink, a bite to eat if that's being on offer, and let's talk about it. And it doesn't matter whether like you said, it doesn't matter whether you're an engineer or you're coming in to work on the tools. This is it's a broad industry that's got everything and anything that we have in society from a role perspective engaged with it, and some fantastic leaders and some fantastic operatives right the way down into the field that look after the assets that supply the services into our homes or into the country as a whole. And it's really important that we do have an open door policy and an open phone policy. If people want to phone up or email, whatever format or platform they wish to communicate, just communicate, just have that initial step, or don't, and speak to one of your friends and see if they'll do it for you. It's we don't bite, honest.
Well, I mean, I'd just say it's as you said at the beginning, we're really busy as an industry. The infrastructure business, not just in the UK but internationally, is just booming. And nobody understands. I'm a nerd. I'm just fascinated by all the things that work in every part of infrastructure. That's just the way I'm wired. But there's so much in any country, in any part of the world, where all the vital services, everything that's going on, they're all interlinked, and understanding how they work and getting to meet the people who are doing those things is a fascinating journey, and it's a real developmental opportunity for anyone, whatever part of the world or business that they're in. And it's worth coming along to one of the branches or contacting one of us and just saying what would I get from the guild? What can I bring to the guild? It's worth a conversation.
Yeah, completely. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, the door's open, the phone lines are open. Yeah, just give us a call, have a chat. The HQ team are brilliant. They know everything there is to know about the guild. But locally is the best way, I think, as you said, Dan. Just pop along to an event and have a chat. There's great groups all around the country, and even if you're not in this country, give us a call, because there's so many opportunities and connections available, and it's such a small world. I think as much as there's potentially challenges with that, and maybe that's why we are where we are, but it is quite a small world. Everybody knows somebody that can. I think that's the great thing, is that if I've got a question, I know I can ring anybody up and just say, any ideas how I'm going to find out how this works, or what do you know about this, or how on earth am I going to get hold of one of these, and you will know somebody. And that's, you know, that's one of the great benefits of the guild and the network and the mentoring schemes that, you know, we offer to encourage people through, and, you know, give you that position so you can explore the guild and what opportunities it might have for you. So I think it's a great place to be, and we're going to have more conversations like this, and I think that's what's really important. So we're keen for feedback. I'm just going to check if we've got any questions, or if anybody feels particularly brave, they can raise a hand, and we can try and answer some questions.
Aha, Wasim.
Yeah. Do you want to turn yourself off mute? I think you can. Hi.
Yeah. Hi guys. Yeah. Very interesting chat. Yeah. The main thing I potentially have to can add or observe is that we're still talking about it. Yeah. It is a good thing. Yeah. You know, I've been in the industry for 25 years, and it's taken maybe 20 years for us to start talking about this. Yeah. You know, I could tell you many stories of where I've felt a little uncomfortable. I could tell you many stories where things have improved, or things I have learned as well, as in how to be inclusive, how to I think Daniel made the point about conscious bias, you know, and that comes through potentially training, being exposed to other cultures, people, and working with them. I've been lucky in a way for the last 10, 15 years working on international projects where I've had to learn the culture of a country, for instance, you know, and understand how they talk to each other, you know, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and hierarchy as well, you know, how to respect that in different cultures or different countries. Like India, we've been working on a project recently, and seniors are called sir. Yeah. And if you don't call them sir, they get a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. So learning that is also good. So the more diverse we are, the more exposure we're going to get of these things, and the quicker we're going to learn. And you know, it'll be a happier place. Our company has recently started recruiting a lot more diverse people, from women to different backgrounds, Asians, international people. So it is an improvement, but what I still see where we're lacking is at the higher level. It's not improving much. Is there a barrier to that? Why is there a barrier to that? And I see it across our industry when I go to, say, the Pipeline Institution Guild dinner. If you count the number of diverse people there, it's minute compared to male, Caucasian orientated, whereas at the lower level we're getting a lot more diverse. Why are we not getting more diverse in the high level? Is it people scared to? Do they still think there's a unconscious bias? And
could I answer that, Rachel? Yeah, I mean, the reason why, Wasim, is what I was saying earlier about people recruiting people like themselves. You know, traditionally, companies have set up, companies have merged, demerged, acquired, and then they've taken their senior teams with them, because they're the folk, they're, as Rachel talked about, the cohort that qualified with them, they're people like them. And that's the way the culture has evolved globally. So the only way to change it is for people who are on that board to recognise just how exclusive they've made themselves unconsciously. That's the reason why it is as it is. So having these conversations is a starting point to start, as I say, poking the bear.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I would add is politics plays a lot in how we think and how we create that bias. For example, Brexit creates a bias. I'm sure that created a bias in terms of European people. We don't want them in our country and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And whether Europeans took that as we can't apply for a job in the UK. That so politics plays a lot in how we sort of think or are perceived by others. So I always try to ignore the newspapers or the news. You know what I mean? It's about integration as well, and integration works both ways. I can't just keep banging on and saying everybody needs to change to what I want. It's how we can educate each other to understand a different culture and also present my culture to them as well, and that creates a lot better understanding. So
I think you said something really important at the start of this, though, Wasim, and it's the duration it's taken us to get to this point. It's taken us far too long, but now we have started. We need to start to accelerate it. And move it forward. So it's important that we do keep talking about it, and it's really good that you've said what you've said today, because it's about people having voices and being able to share their experiences and their perceptions of things that will help move us all forward.
And I think Rachel made a point that when you initially start in an industry or a company, you're head down trying to be the best you can. Don't say any. And somebody says something and you say, oh, right, okay, I'll just accept that. And maybe years down the line, you realize what that person said at that time was really awful. Yeah. And I just took it and carried on. And therefore, that person will never realize that potentially he was wrong, or she, So, I have a group of quite a diverse team that I work with at the moment, and we encourage that sharing culture, sharing their ideas. The quiet ones, I always say, well, I've talked enough. Come on, give us some of your ideas. Why are you quiet? Or I'll get them to chair the meeting. So those things. It's about comfort, getting people comfortable at an early stage. So I think that's enough for me. I could go on for about 25 years.
Well, thank you for sharing your experiences and some of your thoughts on how to move things forward. I agree. We're starting the conversation, and I know Guild are committed to continuing this conversation and being part of the change. So if you have any ideas, you want to reach out to me directly or to Kate, then we're very happy to. We want to deliver what the membership are looking for as well. So if there's more conversations like this, we want to run more sessions like this, different panel, different group of people, different topics. We want to get this open and out there and people feeling comfortable having these having these discussions. So please do reach out to us. This is exactly what we're here for. It's this network, it's building a strong, resilient team, and there's a space for everybody at the table. So that's absolutely what we're about. So thanks for your contributions. I can't see we've got any other comments. So I think on that, I'm probably going to close us out. But thank you both, Dan and Kathy, so much for your time today. It's been really, really appreciated and really useful, and a great start to this conversation. And I think probably just from how we've just concluded shows that we have many more to come.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank
And
you.
thank you everybody for dialing in.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
absolutely. Thanks, everybody.